now. Of course, we covered the Chancellor's spending review in depth, didn't we, yesterday? Lots of you had very strong opinions about it. There was lots of kind of buzz phrases and all the rest of it if you watched the statement. But now, of course, all the dust is starting to settle. People are starting to get into the weeds and the small print and looking at what does it actually mean. Well, I'm old enough to remember when the Labour Party used to tell us that you were not going to see council tax rise by a penny more. It turns out, actually, that's not going to be the case at all, because people are now suggesting, Lord Moylan, that actually council tax is just one example of something that's have to increase. And they're looking now at perhaps the maximum 5% over the next 3 years just to pay for things like the social care and the policing that's been put into this spending review. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think council tax is almost certain to rise, but I think other taxes are going to have to rise as well. I mean, basically, she's gone on a spending spree because she's been rattled by the local election results and the unpopularity of the government. She thinks this might be a way of saving them. But none of the things she's doing, or very few of the things she's doing, are actually generating the economic growth that's going to pay for them. So at some stage, and it may not be this budget in the autumn, but in the next year or two, we're going to get the most almighty crash where she either has to cut spending dramatically or put up taxes again, and she's found no solution out of this cycle.
Aaron?
It's not looking good, is it?
It's not great.
It's not looking good. I think Lord Moylan is absolutely correct. A lot of what we saw yesterday was a direct response to the appalling local election results, which should not have been so politically damaging for Labour, of course. We were looking primarily at Conservative authorities and councillors up for grabs in May. But it was so bad for Labour. They had to do something. I think she's gone regardless. But look, I'm on the left. I didn't vote for Labour at the last election, but I'm sympathetic to people that did. I didn't think they'd be this incompetent in the first year. I mean, we could genuinely be looking at some kind of major economic cataclysm in the next 6 months, the next year. I mean, it's quite extraordinary, actually. And their big bet politically was, we'll fund the NHS, and in 2029, we'll go back to the electorate, and that is going to bring us home a big chunk of votes. And I think that's true, but my, oh my, they've alienated so many other people in the process. It looks like quite a dodgy strategy right now.
One of the things that many people are getting very frustrated about, I speak to you every day and I do my best to read all of your messages. So many of you feel like that there is a lack of honesty and a lack of truth. We keep hearing this sentence all the time, don't we, that we're not going to put up taxes for working people. I heard Rachel Reeves today. She was directly asked about these potential council tax rises, and she just kept pushing back and basically saying, no. These, the rules about a maximum 5%, that wasn't us, that was the previous government. And that's fine and fascinating, but it's still a tax rise on your working people, isn't it? And another thing that I always remember, I'm on a rant now, ladies and gents. Do you remember when Keir Starmer used to talk about VAT on private schools? And if you don't remember, take a listen to what he said this money was going to be spent on.
I'm going to have 6,500 extra teachers in our state secondary schools, as we will. How am I going to pay for it? And so the tax break for private schools has to go, and that will be used directly to fund those places in our state secondary schools.
So VAT on private schools, stupid policy, born out of envy, if you ask me. But you just heard him, and it was repeated all the time that policy was intended to be spent on teachers and things like that in the state system. Well, why then, as Keir Starmer tweeted this? I'll read it out for you if you're listening on the radio. In the budget last year, my government made the tough but fair decision to apply VAT to private schools. The Tories opposed it and Reform opposed it. Today, because of that choice, we have announced the largest investment in affordable housing in a generation. Well, I think that is pretty damn disgusting, really, Aaron Bastani. So you are now taking that money, you've disrupted these children's education, and in many cases, their broader lives. You've had such an impact on them. You made everyone believe that money was going into the state school education system. And actually, you're now saying that money is going to be spent on affordable housing, which, by the way, most of that, if not a significant chunk of it, will be going to people like these illegal asylum seekers, economic migrants, whatever you want to call them. I found it disgraceful and disingenuous and dishonest.
Well, the affordable housing, I mean, it's still not clear how much is social housing, how much is affordable housing, and by the way, that's often not very affordable. To be clear, the housing is being paid for by borrowing. And we know it's being paid for by borrowing because I think this is something that they did, which is good. They changed the rules around borrowing, so actually you don't have to include borrowing for capital investment within the fiscal rules. So I think that's sensible because you're building assets which have a value. So we know that's simply not true. And by the way, I saw Keir Starmer, was it last week, speaking about the reversal on winter fuel allowance and saying, well, we made the hard decisions then, that's why we can now afford to do this today. You cannot be a functioning democracy with good policy going in the right direction if you have politicians lying to that extent. You can't. It's simply not possible if your Prime Minister bends and distorts the truth to that extent. So we saw it last week with winter fuel allowance. We've just seen it there with that post on X. That applies, by the way, to politicians of all stripes. There needs to be a certain baseline of clarity, pragmatism and honesty if you want the country to succeed, which we all do, by the way. We all want the country to succeed. We certainly
want the country to succeed, but we just want politicians as well. Stop lying. Stop lying. I mean, honestly, Daniel, I think to myself, do politicians think that your average Joe is just dense? Do you think that actually we can't remember what you said you was going to spend that VAT on? And do you think we can't read when you're now saying actually something totally different? It's just quite insulting to your average voter. Anyway, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, first of all, I agree entirely with what Aaron said. There has to be a basic level of trust. But you know what I think is one of the causes of all this? Is not that Keir Starmer is necessarily going out there and saying two things that are contradictory. Is that he's not saying anything at all. All this is being said by apparatchiks and kids who are working for him, saying, oh, I've got to get the tweet out today, what can I put in the tweet today, and so on. I've got to get this... And nobody's in touch with anybody else. Nobody remembers what was said last year. Get the tweet out. And then you only find out because of journalists, people like you and so on, saying, well, look, this is what you said last time. And it's sheer incompetence in terms of managing their communication. So they end up as straightforward liars. I don't think Keir Starmer is particularly honest in the way he approaches things. He got elected as a left-wing leader of the Labour Party and then he immediately became a right-winger and kicked all the left-wingers out. I don't think that's particularly honest. But I also think there's this going on, that, you know, you've got these kids, these apparatchiks who are writing this stuff for them, pumping it out. They haven't got a clue what they're doing. They should all be sacked.
Yeah, but you see, surely there's
And you don't... if you're going to say that doesn't excuse the Prime Minister, I agree with you because he employs them.
I know, but I cannot imagine a scenario where some random is tweeting in my name on behalf of me things that I don't...
Get inside number 10. It's not just this one. It happens it's been happening for years.
Yes, but surely any grown-up, any sensible individual is not going to allow someone to tweet in their name something that is directly opposite to either what they think or what they've said, or surely there's some quality control that goes into this kind of thing.
And that's where the incompetence comes in. In previous governments, you'd have had better quality control, you had better people doing it and so on. This government, as Aaron said, it just seems totally unfit for the job it's been elected to do and totally unprepared for it as well.
And anyway, we talk about housing, Aaron. One of the other things that happened recently was now sleeping rough is going to be decriminalised.
Yeah.
Many people are now concerned that you're going to have all these tent cities popping up everywhere. What do you think?
Well, I'm not an expert in housing law and housing policy. I don't think that being criminalised is necessarily going to be a massive disincentive for somebody who's homeless to sleep or not sleep on the street. But look, the key problem is we have more people sleeping rough for a range of reasons. We don't have enough housing. Housing is unaffordable. Family breakup. What was really interesting for me, actually, I spoke to a guy who runs a charity where I'm from, Bournemouth, a Liverpudlian, an amazing man, and he was saying the number one reason for people he meets with addiction issues, he was formerly homeless himself, the number one reason is the breakup of a relationship. And that just spirals into something really bad, into substance abuse, drug addiction, homelessness, and then they can't get themselves back on their feet. And clearly, the way we operate as a society...
So we should give them a house?
No.
There isn't enough affordable housing.
I'm not. Well, I think affordable housing is certainly part of the problem, not for somebody with substance abuse issues, homelessness, but for the hidden homeless, I think it's probably part of the solution. But what we've been doing over the last 15, 20 years, whether it's substance abuse, whether it's homelessness, what we've been doing hasn't worked. So clearly we need to change something quite drastically. I'm not seeing change being proposed.